All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I know it's a early morning after a late night, so I appreciate everyone being here this morning. So my name is Wade Callison, Chief Strategy Officer here at Files.com. So today we're gonna spend a few minutes talking about managed file transfer, how despite all this technology and all these countermeasures that we're doing, managed file transfer still remains one of the absolute most vulnerable parts of a network. And we'll talk about ways to be able to protect yourselves from that. So as you guys know, starting about 2005, the industry was looking at file transfer protocol, FTP, and saying, look, FTP is insecure, we need something better. So SFTP was born. And out of SFTP, we're like, well, we need more auditability and compliance, and MFT was born. And the promise of MFT is that it was built on three pillars. And the three pillars were really around that you had all the centralized controls that you need in one place. And with these centralized controls, you can then make sure that everything is managed from one location. You then had comprehensive auditing. So everything could be audited and everything, you could see what was going on. And the last was enterprise integration. It's really the first time that this started becoming part of the fabric of the organization. And so the promise is that CISOs could sleep well at night, heads of IT could automate everything, and compliance officers would pass the audits. And for a while, it was working well. When you look at MFT and the growth of MFT over that time span, it really grew where 90% of all enterprises were using MFT. It was a $1.2 billion market, and everyone's like, yes, this has solved the problem. But if you look at the flip side of that problem, you'll see what happened, which is it became a target of all the hackers. And when you look at the numbers, it's 4.4 million per hack of one of these systems. And the numbers are just staggering over that time period. When you look just at this year alone, there's 154 instances in Q1 of this year from managed file transfer attacks. And we'll talk about how and why that is. The modern MFT attack is actually pretty straightforward and simple. You start with compromising that MFT server. That MFT server typically is sitting inside of your DMZ, sitting in a place that is connected and trusted by the rest of the organization and the rest of your systems. And then because it's trusted, you can move laterally within the organization. You can either compromise that server or you can move laterally within it. And the big deal is that we protect all the core systems and all the core data, but when you're trading with your counterparties, all your core data is sitting in this edge server that can be compromised. And so the attack vector is attack it, sit, don't show that you've attacked it, wait for 6 months, exfiltrate data, encrypt data, and then the crown jewels are gone. And so what ends up happening is that, like I said, it takes most organizations 6 months to even know that they've got an attack. And then after that, then they have to try to remediate it. And often at that point, it's too late. The reason it's so prominent and prevalent is that what made MFT so powerful is also its three fatal flaws. Because it's that central point of control, it's also that central point of failure. So you have that single point that's a target that once you go after that, then you're dealing with hundreds of counterparties' data, whether your data or your counterparties' data, and that's some of the most precious information in your supply chain. The trust overextension. MFT servers were not built in a zero trust environment. Most of them are 15, 20 years old, and they were built on sort of legacy principles of how to build systems. So they don't do microsegmentation, they are vulnerable in their databases, they allow scripting and all these other things that really put you at risk. And so the other part is that we have insisted that MFT connect to all the old legacy systems of our partners. And so you've got 30, 40-year-old connections that shouldn't still exist, that are vulnerable. And so today what you're finding is that because of these three fatal flaws, we're seeing the numbers just skyrocket. Again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but when you look at the number of days to compromise, 204 days, most organizations don't know until then. You're looking at $4.4 million for an average cost of a ransomware. And again, the numbers that I was looking at just this morning were over 10,000 organizations have been compromised globally due to MFT attacks. And I have to tell you, it's happening every day. like, it's been great for our business. It's not great for the industry. It's not great for your counterparties and your customers, but we deal with customers every day who, someone came by the booth yesterday. We just installed a brand new MFT server. It was compromised 2 weeks later, and now we've got to move off of it. Again, this is not something of the past. This is happening every day. And the reason is because what ends up happening is that these occasional vulnerabilities that exist and these CVEs that are released, there's this persistent undetected access that sits there, and then they sit there for months and months, exfiltrating your data, encrypting your data, understanding your patterns, and implanting their own user accounts in there and their own scripts in there as well. And the reason this has been that way is because it's sort of evolved, and it started with a bunch of script kiddies in the early 2020s. And then you started seeing nation states like Clop and Medusa, and these are organizations with huge bounties on their head, and they've not been caught in 4 or 5 years. And now what we're seeing is ransomware as a service is now this underground market. You can now go get the tools you need to be able to launch your own threats. And like I said, it's happening every day. The real threat and the real fear, though, for all of us is, as you hear around the floor, AI. AI attack vectors are going to become even more prevalent. And so as an organization, what we think of the attack vectors of today will actually be very different in the coming months and years. And so as we look at that, we just really need to think about how do we architect for that sort of future. And so this is a slide here. Those logos, we've taken out the logos of the vendors who are there. You'll know every one of these vendors, but look at the stats here. This is different vendors, different years with different sort of impacts. And so like I said, just this year, over 2,000 exposed servers, and there's ongoing breaches. Like I said, we get calls every day from very urgent organizations that won't tell us why they're so urgent, and then we find out later what has really gone in their organization. So let's flip. So like, what can we do about this? I think the first is let's not assume that managed file transfer is secure just because it should be. Again, most systems and platforms aren't architected, and the actual product themselves, but then the system around it is not architected for security either. And so you've got to rethink the way you think about the role MFT plays in your organization. Now, we're not going to talk about what files.com does. This is really what you need to do. It happens to be what we do as well, but this is things you need to be thinking about, which is a zero trust architecture. You need to be evaluating your vendors for a zero trust architecture at their core. That needs to be how they're architected through and through, with all the same principles that you would implement. And then you have to implement around that platform your own zero trust architecture principles to make sure that it's protected. The second is behavioral monitoring. These anomalies are subtle. The things you find will be subtle from these different attacks. So you need to be looking for that. You need to have your SIEM servers integrated. You need to be looking for these anomalies and treat each anomaly as a potential attack. Any slight anomaly still could be something that you need to watch out for. And then the last is that defense in depth. We all know to build defense in depth. This is another area here where having the right protections at each level, IP whitelisting, end-to-end encryption, all the things that you know need to have happen, the complex passwords, users self-serving, being able to change their own passwords so you're not emailing passwords. These are all the things that we know we need to do. So if we have a plan for sort of how we're going to think about this, the first is we need to audit the MFT system privileges. What privileges exist? Make sure you understand those. A lot of these servers, again, have some protection on the inbound, but on the outbound into your organization, there's a lot of openness to your organization because it's easy you have to get the files out of there. And so audit that, make sure you understand where you are at with that. Then, like we talked about, do behavioral monitoring. Make sure you understand what behaviors are normal, baseline that, what behaviors are not, and really take a critical eye. And then think about how you evolve your architecture to be zero trust. Over the next weeks and months, this is going to be the thing that I think will help protect you. We were just in Atlanta this last week talking with one of the largest financial services companies, and they're re-architecting every layer of their architecture for zero trust. And that's then part of this journey is how do you do that? And cloud actually plays a big part in how do you get to zero trust as well, because the segmentation that's natural in SaaS ensures that you cannot have the access and be phished from internally to be able to get access and compromised internally. So I've got one slide here that I'm going to invite my colleague Ian up just to give you a quick demo of an example from one of our customers. Old systems, as you know, were not secure by design. You had to trust and monitor and perimeter defense. Now, we have to have security by verification. You have to make sure that everything you do is secured because it's secured by design. You have to then verify and validate, and then always assume you've been compromised. Always assume there's a compromise that's available to your system and that you need to go protect yourself from. And so with that, you'll make sure that you're safer. So like I said, let me ask Ian to come up. Ian's just going to show you quickly a case study here from one of our customers and how that plays out.
All right, thank you, Wade. Hey everybody, Ian Wagner. Let me get set up real quick. This is actually a demo that I performed for a company that reached out to us not too long ago, who are now customers. Global fast food chain, everybody would recognize. Their cybersecurity team, hopefully you can see my screen. Their cybersecurity team, you cannot see my screen. Anybody want to?
Here. Is it? No, here. We should have got you.
Do I have to drag it over somewhere?
No.
Or?
Give me your, where's your?
So I'll set this up while Wade's getting this set up for me. Cybersecurity team tasked with responding to security incidents, including breaches of workstations. They came to us with sort of a hodgepodge, decentralized methodology, lacking resilience, lacking permission control, lacking auditing, and lacking the ability to easily share with third parties if needed. Still on? Oh, okay, there it is. And what they needed was they needed a way to collect and transfer files that included like malware samples, forensic images, other incident files into sort of a data room to support the incident. And these files are, 100 gigabytes, even terabytes of files, and they're coming from all over the globe, right? And they're going to their forensics lab, which is in the UK. And on top of that, these workstations have been locked down, right? So these workstations, you can't install a client on them. They don't have file access. They just have web access, and they're otherwise just sort of in restricted mode. So help me get a terabyte file from this workstation in India all the way to our forensics lab in the UK. So this is what I showed them. When they gave us all of that, I gave them a quick demo. This is their created a directory for us to do this demo in, and this is exactly what I showed them. So the first step, what's the first step is, okay, they have a data lab that's in their forensics office in London that has the servers that they're going to store these files on. How do we connect that? Step one would be to, and I'm just going to go over to our remote servers tab here. How do we connect to that server? So I have something that's already set up. This actually only takes 2 minutes to set up, but I'm trying to keep this down to 2 or 3 minutes. So this is already pre-done, but I have this on-prem server that I've integrated with. Happens to be my own machine here. If I can pull it, so this is a command prompt that's running an agent that's on my machine. My machine is standing in for your data lab, right? So I've connected from the data lab. I've connected it to our files.com instance, and those files are now available to files.com. So step one, okay, I want to create a folder that represents the lab. So we'll call it lab 1. This folder is on files.com, but we can quickly change that by mounting it to the lab server. So this is my server that's on my machine. I want to choose a particular folder that I've created called lab 1. Now, this folder is actually connected straight to an on-prem machine through the files.com cloud on-prem. So now anything that you upload to this folder is going to be here. I've already created an incident folder within that. So You get a call. You have to do your forensics work. Step one: create a data room for the incident. That folder is here. Step two: how do we now provide the mechanism to move files from the compromised workstation to the folder? Very easy to go in here, and actually we'll go back. We'll create what we call a share link to this folder. All right, so this is a share link. We want it to be upload only, right? So in this case, we're just trying to get files from the workstation to their data lab. So the permission is upload only. And now we have a link that they can type into the browser on the compromised workstation. There are no passwords. There's no sort of vulnerable data, because you could have a keystroke logger looking for what's happening on that workstation. Now we have this URL. You can upload folders or files or folders. They go all the way back to our lab here. Now, how do they make it? One of their concerns was this has to be fast, right? So these are huge files going across the globe. So what happens is when you're uploading to this share link, files automatically finds the nearest data center. So if you're in India, if you're working on a workstation in India, Singapore is the closest data center. It transfers the file to Singapore and then uses Files.com's global accelerated network to quickly move that file to London, where another data center is, and then download it to their lab. So we're able to transfer those files in quick enough time so that they can start responding and figuring out what's happened with this incident and providing a solution. There's more to this demo, and I'd love to show you more. Our booth is right over there, and we can demo some more, or we can dig into this for you a little bit later on if you're interested in learning more about it. That's the 2-minute, 3-minute, 4-minute demo that I promised Wade. I'll invite him back up. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good job.
Hold the applause.
All right, now. All right, let me go back here. So with that, thank you, Ian. Like Ian said, we're over here in booth, I never remember the number, 5015. You'll see us over here to the back right. We'd love for you to come by and talk with us. Like I said, I think that there's a lot that we can discuss and help you with. So thank you again for spending some time with us this morning. Really appreciate it. Hope you learned something, and hopefully you have a good show. Okay, thank you.